This is Luke Radowski of WeAreChange.org here at 10 Downing Street in London, England. And of course, everyone has heard the news today that Sweden has officially dropped all the charges against Julian Assange, which I guess that means he's free to go, free to leave the Ecuadorian embassy. But no, the British government today announced that they would arrest Julian Assange if he did leave the Ecuadorian embassy because he violated bail for charges that are no longer relevant. To talk about this and a lot more in the future of Julian Assange, we have Ben Griffin of Veterans for Peace, who's been following Julian Assange, a longtime supporter. I think you've been to all the court hearings about Julian Assange. And Ben, first of all, I just wanted to ask you, what is your reaction and why do you think the British government still wants to arrest Julian Assange?
I'm not sure, I don't think anyone's sure about the actual intentions of this announcement today. So in the morning, we had a very clear statement from the Swedish prosecutor that they were dropping the case against Julian Assange, which means that there is no reason to extradite Assange from the UK to Sweden. That sounds pretty straightforward. You'd think that Julian would be able to then leave the embassy, travel to a destination of his choice. But then within hours, maybe within 1 hour, we have this strange statement from the Metropolitan Police that states that despite there not being any case to answer in Sweden, that they will arrest Assange for a breach of bail for a crime that in effect no longer exists. Yeah. Which is a very strange thing to do. A friend of mine who was a policeman for some years, I asked him about this and he said, no, that's not normal at all. If someone was wanted on bail, which is a civil offence, not a criminal offence, and they'd breached that bail, but then that case or that crime they'd either been exonerated or someone else was caught or it was just dropped, they wouldn't have to answer for breaching bail on that. It's just incredible.
It's a very strange case, and it's very mind-boggling to have Julian Assange in the embassy locked up in there for so many years now. So many tax dollars have been spent by the local people here setting up security when there's so many other issues that the money could be used for. And of course, there's a lot of speculation also out there about a secret grand jury indictment in the United States that cannot be presented unless the United States has Julian Assange in their custody. We also heard from Trump's administration that he wants to charge Julian Assange, says he's okay with that. There's speculation of Assange trying to get asylum in France. But I wanted to ask you, Ben, since you've been following this for such a long time, what do you think is going to be the future of Julian Assange? Where do you think this case is going to end?
I don't think anyone could predict that. What we do know is that over the years, both before his original arrest and afterwards, Julian Assange has made some very powerful enemies. If we look at the information that has been released by his organisation WikiLeaks, we've got the Iraq war logs, the Afghan war diaries, collateral murder video, Cablegate, and it goes on and on and on. This is fearless publishing. And he has upset a lot of powerful people. And it's not just Trump or Clinton. He's upset pretty much the whole of the American security apparatus, whether that's the CIA, the NSA, or the American military. So what we do know is that Assange has created some very powerful enemies that he continues to publish, and so those enemies aren't going to forget about that, and he continues to, in some ways, continues to make new enemies. Julian lives with a raised level of threat to his life, to his freedom on a daily basis, and that's not going anywhere.
I mean, from my perspective, the whole thing is very nonsensical. It makes no sense at all. Even the UN came out and condemned what the British government was doing. Can you give us more details about that?
Sure, there was a UN committee, I can't remember they all have so many letters to their names, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was on arbitrary detention. And they looked into the case of Julian Assange, in effect being held at the Ecuadorian embassy by the Swedish state and the UK government, because if he left, he would have been arrested. And they looked into it and decided that this was a form of unlawful detention. And I think they also took into account, we want to check this out, but they also took into account the fact that the Ecuadorian government had granted him asylum. That's another important fact to take into account on this. So you've got a UN committee ruling stating that what is happening to Assange at the minute is in effect illegal. And maybe that has had some influence over this decision by the Swedish prosecutor today to drop the case against Assange.
It just still boggles my mind why this is happening. For me, Assange released a lot of information. Obviously, there were some also mistakes made, but I just wanted to ask you, most importantly, since you're also a military veteran yourself, one of the major talking points in the United States is that Julian Assange, threatened the safety, is disrespectful to veterans. Can I ask you, why are you such a big campaigner for WikiLeaks?
Sure. I mean, it's important for me. I'm a veteran of the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, Yugoslavia, Northern Ireland. And when I got home from the war in Iraq, how the war was portrayed in the media by our politicians, by our generals, bore no resemblance to my own experiences. They weren't talking about the civilian deaths. They weren't talking about towns and villages destroyed. They weren't talking about people being held indefinitely and tortured. They were painting a completely different picture. And for me, when WikiLeaks released the Iraq war logs and the collateral murder video, I thought, at last, someone is publishing the truth of what is going on in these conflicts. They're publishing thousands of facts about the day-to-day occurrences in those conflicts. And I think if people sit down and read that, they'll be shocked. They'll be shocked to find out what we were doing in Iraq and Afghanistan. But not only that, they also, through the Cablegate release, showed us how all these things are discussed amongst between governments and between government departments. And it gives you a completely different insight in comparison to what we're told in the media. So WikiLeaks is a very important organisation. I think the American, during the Manning case, the Chelsea Manning case, the prosecution was forced to admit that not a single soldier had been killed. They had no evidence that a single soldier had been killed as a result of the leaks. And that's from the horse's mouth, as it were.
I was there during the Chelsea Manning hearings, and it was a very profound, powerful feeling to experience something like that, because ultimately what's happening is the government's trying to cover up what they're doing, and organizations like WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden and other individuals are making sure that we know, and once we know, we wouldn't be for them. Ben Griffin, thank you so much for Veterans for Peace. Your link will be in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe, stay tuned, we're going to have more on-the-ground reporting all over the world. I don't know where I'm going next. Let me know in the comment section below. I love you guys for watching and supporting real independent media. Thank you.